Hello, everybody. Welcome to Talking Ball. How's it going, everybody? It's Colin here, of course, as always, and I'm joined today by one of my favorite people. It's Soren. Soren, my man, how are you doing today?
I'm good, thank you. Just trying to get warm. It's a little bit rainy here in the UK, so it's a bit wet and a bit cooler.
For once, we finally have the same weather, man. It's very rainy here. We had a storm yesterday, I guess last night, but carried through all night and still raining actually. So
Mm.
I feel that. I feel that.
Yeah,
But
we've
yeah,
we've just had a bit of thunder and lightning, so the dogs are a little bit morbid at the moment. Not morbid, a little bit quiet. So
yeah. My dog was not happy about the thunder and lightning last night. Panting
mm,
and dog stuff, the
yeah,
typical
they're not
dog
too
things.
bad. But yeah, I think they're a little bit more pissed off they can't go outside.
Yeah, that'll do it, man.
Mm.
But hey, might as well jump right into it. And first of all, I just want to say to anybody that's watching, thanks for tuning in. I really do appreciate it. If you guys could go ahead and hit a like, drop a comment in, let us know how you're feeling today. Um, we'll be glad to get you into the conversation. So yeah, with that, man, I'm sure that I'm not telling you anything you haven't already heard when I tell you that it looks like somebody's been left out of the Champions League squad. Let me tell you about it.
Come on
You like
then,
that?
tell me.
Tell you
Yeah,
about it?
tell
Yeah.
go on. Give
So
me a clue.
he's 20. He's
20.
highly regarded by some, but not by most. From the Bundesliga. Oh gosh, it's Mathys
Is Xavi
Tel.
Simmons? We're talking
It's
about Xavi.
it's Javi Simmons exactly. No,
He's been left out, really?
we did it. Yeah, can you believe Thomas
Oh,
Frank? What an idiot.
this club. It just you're just never surprised, are you?
Always
At least tells in the group then.
right, exactly. We're gonna be fine. We're gonna be fine.
Yeah,
It's not all doom and gloom. There's
no,
goals to be scored.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, I mean, Soren, I don't think that you're probably too sad about it, but you know, people are giving this guy a lot of trouble online, and
Mm.
Mathys Tel, that is not
Yeah,
not
yeah,
Javi Simmons.
yeah. I've caught up now.
Oh, okay, you're on the right track.
Yeah,
Good.
I'm on
Well,
the level now.
proud of you, man. I don't know if I get all of the hate that he's getting, but first of all, yeah, did you just have any like thoughts before we jump into it? Like, are you
I'm su-
surprised?
I'm surprised. Yeah. I mean, we discussed this the other night, and couple of channels and a few of the WhatsApp groups and things like that. And I I like the lad. I think he's a good prospect. And I was surprised because I thought there were others that could have easily been probably dropped rather than him. And I think it's almost a little bit like the Spence, when we left Spence out. And I know some people are really giving him a lot of stick and saying he's not good enough and things like this, but I don't get it. I mean, I've seen him play when he played for Bayern, and sort of watched him a couple of times under Ange, and I didn't think he did too badly. Don't get me wrong, in the what was it, the Super Cup or whatever against PSG, just I'll have to apologise if there's a lot of barking going on. My dogs are going mental.
Oh, I don't hear anything, so you're good on
No,
my end.
okay then. Um, so yeah, I know he had a bad game against PSG, and he was rather quiet, but I just think in this day and age, there is far too much hatred going around on social media for these players, and I don't know what people think, what good they think it does. I mean, there's one or two people that I see it all the time from, and it's the same people, the same crap that they come out with. And it's as though they think they know everything about football. And look, everybody's allowed an opinion, and I get that. But to just constantly criticise a player because you either don't like him or you have an agenda against him. It just baffles me. And for us to sit here and criticize these players that are in the top 1% of their profession to the extent that, I mean, I'm not talking about people that that give constructive criticism or say he's had a bad game or whatever. I'm talking about the hatred, the abuse, the racism, and all this type of thing, and the constant criticism, no matter how well they've played. That's the people I'm talking about. I just find it baffling. I really do.
I'm with you, man. I'm with you to a certain extent. I mean, for sure, everyone is entitled to their own opinion, and I think it would be boring if everyone had the same opinion all the time. Where would the fun be in that? So, for sure. And I like opinions, and I like to hear things and kind of have my opinion tested a little bit. All good stuff, all fun. One thing too that I think kind of is strange is when people say things like, "Oh, I'm not going to settle. I want what's best for the club," as if not dogging on Mathys Tel or whoever the player is at the time, the dog on, as if not dogging on them means, for one, that you don't want what's best for the club, and for two, as if dogging on the player is going to make the team get better players. Like as if we have
Yeah.
any say in what players are brought in. As if Levy and the board are scouring Reddit or these YouTube channels to go, oh, Colin and Soren don't like Mathys Tel. We need to send him on loan because he's not good enough. And thank God we found out, or else we were going to just roll with him for, that's kind of strange to me. I don't get what people think, what kind of say they think they have in it, but again,
Yeah, I mean, to me, if you support your club, and look, everybody has a different interpretation of how to support a football club, and everybody's way of supporting a football club to them is the right way, and I get that. For me personally, I believe supporting my club means you support them as positively and as upbeat as you can through thick and thin, through the good, the bad, the ugly times. When you get knocked out of a cup, yeah, you give the criticism for that match, but you move on. That match is gone, and if a player isn't good enough, you give him it. But you don't resort to abuse. You don't resort to anything else. It's look, you say, look, I don't think the player's good enough. He was crap today, or he was excellent today, or he did some good things, he did some bad things. But when all you can see is the bad, that to me isn't supporting your team. But if that's how people want to support a team, and that's fine. I mean, I always think that if you go into a game thinking you're going to win, thinking that your team is the best team in the world, you've got your positivity. Yes, 9 times out of 10 with Tottenham these days, you get beat down at the end of it. I get that, but I don't want to go into the match thinking, oh well, we've already lost, or what's the point in turning up, or I'm not going to waste my time supporting this club, because I don't understand that mentality. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying it's not for me. But I don't know. For me, to support my club means I support every player that plays for us. I support the manager. I support the owners. I support the staff that work there. And that's to me is supporting my club. And look, if a player gets sold or a player gets loaned out or a player stops playing for us or the manager leaves, then I'll give my the opinion that he was either good enough or he wasn't. But while they actually play for the team, then to get my backing, and that's the only way I know how to support my team.
lovely stuff. Yeah, absolutely, man. I completely agree with you there. I think you and I, part of why I like having you on the show, Soren, is I think that you and I have kind of a similar mentality. We're both pretty nice guys, and I like it. I think more people ought to be like that. You know,
Yeah, I
yeah,
mean, they say nice guys finish last, and that's fair enough. But I mean, a lot of the people that are out there that are negative, and I'm not just talking about Tottenham fans, I'm talking about all walks of life. When you turn around and say, I told you so, because it has gone wrong, I don't see where the enjoyment comes in that. I'd rather be pissed off knowing that it's gone wrong than happy knowing that it's gone wrong because I predicted it. And I'd rather be proven wrong in the chance of I have every chance of being proven right that we've won something or whatever. I mean, we look at all the crap that we took under Ange, but at the end of the 2 years, I don't care what anybody says, we won a trophy. And what manager, what was who was the last manager to win as a trophy or a European trophy even, So we've had all the world beaters in Conte and Jose and Poch, Harry Redknapp, all these managers, and yet none of them won as a trophy. So, when we beat down on players like Mathys Tel, Brennan Johnson last year, and everybody hated Brennan Johnson last year. Who was the top scorer for the team?
Who
Brennan
scored
Johnson.
for us in the Europa League final?
Who scored for us in the Europa League final? Who scored for us a few times to get there? And then before that, it's Archie Gray, another young kid. It seems that these people that are happy to have a go at them only want to have a go at young kids.
That's a good observation there. Yeah, man. It does seem like young kids are the ones that are oftentimes on the end of that. Wow. Uh, I hadn't really given that a lot of thought. But yeah, that's a good observation for sure, man. And it's a good thing that you brought up Ange as well, because I think that a lot of this Mathys Tel is no good. He doesn't have what it takes for the Premier League, this and that. We have to remember that he's not the only player that didn't look good under
Mm.
Ange Postecoglou. Not even close. I think that I don't know. I think that it's unfair to say for sure that he doesn't have what it takes under Thomas Frank. Whenever we haven't seen him play, but 2 matches. I know there was preseason, but honestly, I can't remember how many minutes he got in preseason. I don't feel like much, to be honest. But um, he hasn't had a lot of time to show what he can do under this manager. And yeah, I'd just be interested to see, what he, I don't know, what he looks like come the end of the season, and yeah. Anyway, we've got a couple people in the comments. Let me try something out here real quick. We got El Tel Cockerel in the house. He's saying, "Good afternoon, compadres. Good afternoon to you, sir. It's morning in my world, but no, it's afternoon in yours. I get that. How's it going, my friend?" And then we've got Quez. Hello, Quez. Hope you're doing well today. Glad you guys are here. Yeah, and if you guys don't mind letting me know, one of the main questions I had for you today, Soren, I wanted to ask: do you think that there is a chance that we see Tell going on loan come January? From what I understand, he was not allowed to go on loan, like and leave during the summer transfer window because we technically brought him in that window, even though he was on loan prior to that. We technically had just signed him during that window, so a player can't leave on loan in the same window they're signed. So, do you think that there is a chance that we see him go out on loan in January?
Yes and no. It's one of those that I think. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets a few minutes here and there. And look, if he can start to show some of the form that he did in Germany a little bit, then I think he's got more of a chance. And look, I mean, we don't know if something's happening behind the scenes in training or whatever. Maybe Thomas Frank just doesn't think he's ready. I mean, we saw it. Like I say, we saw it with Jed Spence. So Ange didn't think he was ready. He didn't put him in the squad, and then he showed that he was needed. So hopefully Mathys Tel can do the same. I suppose the big thing is with when you look at that left hand side. I mean, everybody said we needed to sign a top left winger, but we have 4 or 5 players that can play left wing, and I suppose it just depends, on the training side behind the scenes and what happens in a couple of matches from now on. If these players don't show up, then yeah, they're not going to play. And I think at the moment, obviously, Mathys Tel is more left but can play striker. So, I mean, look, let's see. A couple of injuries and he's back on the bench at least, isn't he? So It's only going to take an injury to, say, Odebear and Brennan Johnson, and Mathys Tel's probably back in with the shout.
Very true. Very true. And a good point you made too about him being, depth at striker. Because when I think about him, I, to be honest, I mostly put him at the left wing or the left side of the pitch. But you make a good point in that he, I don't know, Ange seemed to have thought of him more as a striker
Yeah.
than a winger, and yeah, he doesn't seem like a player that particularly like wants to dribble past defenders. Maybe striker is a better fit for him with that in mind. That's a good point. So everybody in the chat, let us know. Do you see Tell as more of a striker or a winger? And do you think that there's a chance we see him go on loan in January? I don't know, Soren. If he was to go out on loan, do you think Championship would be a good? People always say that the Premier League is so physical, and the physicality is what a lot of people struggle with. And I oftentimes hear people throw out like Championship as a possible loan destination for players that are having trouble adapting because that's a physical league as well. Do you think that the Championship would be a good place for him to go?
I would probably plump more to like maybe somebody that we expect to finish bottom half of Prem, and I'm not talking about Tottenham. But yeah, I mean, maybe a Leeds or somebody like that. But I honestly, I don't know. I just don't see him going out on loan at the moment. I think we need the cover now, and like I say, fair enough. If everybody's fit come January, then we might see it. But I just think with the amount of games we've got, it would surprise me. We were having the discussion. Oh, come on. We were having the discussion the other night about rotating and things like that. And if you're going to rotate these players, then surely there's a chance for Tell to play in the cup games or some of the lower tier Prem games. Obviously, he's not going to play in the Champions League. But, if you're going to start playing, say, Xavi and Muani and Brennan and Kudos in the Champions League, then they're going to need a rest at some point. Otherwise, we're going to see exactly what we saw under Ange. And so that to me tells me at some point he will get minutes. And it only takes for one injury. And then if he comes on as a sub and has a blinder, then, what's to say that he doesn't go on and maybe not keep the starting spot, but at least get the first sub spot or whatever.
Yeah, no, for sure, for sure. And as everybody else knows too, we're going to be able to kind of resubmit our Champions League squad in January. So there's a chance, like you said, if he's pulling up trees in cup games or in the league or wherever we decide to play him, he could make that squad come second half of the season, and we could all be having a completely different conversation around Mathys Tel. And this we could look back and laugh at this conversation for sure. We've got some more comments in the meantime. Peter Kagaius, what is up, my friend? He says hi all 1223 in Melbourne, and he's gifted a very generous super chat to the channel. Thanks a bunch, Peter. I really do appreciate you, man. It's 9:27 here in Indiana, 3:27 in sunny England. Peter, I'm glad you're here, man. We've also got Sean Pierce in the chat, watching from Vietnam. Dude, that's crazy cool. Hope everything's going well in Vietnam. I said that he's sorry, but Tell proved in his loan spell that he wasn't good enough, yet we signed him anyway. Madness. Sean, you're not the first person that I've heard surprised that we signed him after his loan spell. There's been some talk about whether or not the loan had an obligation kind of snuck in there, like some kind of a clause where if he got X amount of minutes, whether or not that loan had to be made permanent. I'm not sure, Soren, if you suspect anything similar.
I was under the impression it was a loan with the chance to buy him rather than an obligation. But maybe it, maybe there was a if you win a trophy. And obviously we signed that thinking we've no chance of winning a trophy. Yeah, we don't need to sign him. But no, I mean I was under the impression it was a loan with the chance to buy him at the end rather than an obligation. But
yeah, and we had no manager. I feel like, or at least Ange knew he was on the way out at the time that all was coming like due. And so maybe it was a Levy thing where, Levy thought,
We were discussing this the other day, and I'm under the impression Thomas Frank signed on the dotted line on the 12th of June, and Mathys Tel signed on the dotted line on the 15th. So
hmm,
therefore, Thomas Frank was in position, and uh, I mean, obviously, I don't know, but I would be very surprised if Thomas Frank wasn't, given the option. Do you want him or not? So I'd be surprised if Thomas Frank didn't give the go ahead to keep him. But we'll never know unless Thomas comes out and tells us. But yeah, I don't think it would necessarily be a Daniel Levy just not giving a monkeys and going out and signing him. I honestly don't think that would happen, but I could be wrong.
and we have to think too, or at least I have to remind myself, players with a lot of promise. First of all, he cost what, like 30 million, roundabout 35, something like that. The market's absolutely like crazy at the moment,
Yeah,
and I don't think it's going to get any better. But 30 million isn't what it was a couple of years ago. 30 million was like the top for like a top tier player,
yeah,
in the past. But nowadays, that's kind of a standard fee. I understand that's a lot of money. I understand that we had a chance of getting um, players this window for roundabout that amount of money, specifically Adamola Lookman. And I know that's I think that's why everybody is so kind of up in arms about this
yeah,
transfer currently, is because we or Frank had put out there that he wanted a player for the left side. We spent a lot of time trying to get Savino from City. That didn't happen. Then Adamola Lookman was available. Adamola Lookman scores lots of goals in Italy. We don't get him, and then everyone thinks, or maybe they don't think this, but it seems to me like everyone thinks that the reason we didn't get Lookman is because we've got Tell. And yeah, I think had we not missed out, or quote unquote missed out on Lookman, because I really think that everyone thinks we wanted him but didn't get him for some reason this summer.
mm.
I think that's part of the reason why people are so upset about Tell currently.
Yeah. And look, I know it's not the right thing to do, but let's just remember when we signed Gareth Bale.
Absolutely, yeah.
He was terrible for the first season or whatever. And I can't remember how many matches we went in, and whenever he started or played for us, we lost. How all was it? 15 matches or something
I
like that.
think 13 was always what I heard, but yeah,
Yeah.
15 could be right. Yeah,
And I remember being at at Man City's ground, Tottenham playing Man City, and when they were announcing the team, Gareth Bale's name was shouted, and everybody was booing. Everybody was booing the fact that Gareth Bale was starting, and he had an absolutely terrible match. Apart from something, I think it was about the last 10 minutes of before he was taken off, and he suddenly did, a couple of runs, and it was like, oh, I've not seen him really do that before. And then, not long after that, is suddenly a superstar. Now, I'm not saying Mathys Tel is going to be a Gareth Bale, but they've obviously seen something within him, and he is quite highly thought of in Germany. A lot of Bayern fans were not happy that he'd gone. It wasn't so bad that he'd gone on loan because they expected he would come back, but a lot of fans were unhappy that we'd signed him permanently in the end.
but then
So,
Soren, you hear people say, well, then why they let him go? Why were Bayern okay to let him leave if he's so good?
well, yeah, but when you look at Bayern, I mean, Bayern's a little bit like what some of the fans think we should be like, where they are at the top of their league. They're the Man City of or maybe the Liverpool now of the Bundesliga. And the problem is with these youngsters, they don't always get the chance to get in the squads. And if you're a Liverpool or you're a Man City or whoever, you've got to keep that standard up. And yeah, he's maybe not up to the standard of first team Bayern Munich, but that doesn't mean to say he won't be in 2 or 3 years. And yeah, you look at Tottenham, and everybody thinks we're a club that should only sign top tier players. Well, sometimes you've got to sign the players that may become a top tier player one day.
For sure.
And I think that's why we've signed the likes of Tell. And look, let's not forget, this time last year, it was just Archie Gray. Archie Gray was the bad one, and Brennan Johnson was the bad one. It's just a case of
Bergvall, even. I mean, yeah,
Bergwall, yeah,
people didn't think super highly of him last season.
yeah. When we signed him, there were bets going left, right, and centre that Bergvall Gray would never get a game. Well, it didn't quite work out that way, did it? Might be through injury, it might not be, but then we play Archie Gray as a centre back or a left back instead of where he's supposed to play. And then the only time we play him is we chuck him in against Liverpool when they're high and flying. So it's a bit like Tell. He's shown some good stuff. When he first came, he was running around. He was trying to get on the ball a lot. He was doing some good things. People say, well, he missed a penalty. Well, he scored a penalty. To get, was it to get us there or was it in the league? I can't remember now. So
Honestly, I can't remember either. But yeah,
yeah.
I'm following. I know what you're saying.
But look, I mean, it's one of those. These kids have been signalled out to be a good prospect for the future. And let's not forget, you look at Archie Gray. He was wanted by Thomas Frank before we bought him. So, if all of a sudden everybody else is thinking he's a crap player, you see, he's only he's 19 years old, 18 years old. He's had one full season in the Premiership. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's a little premature. I think to say that he is or isn't ready for the league. Again, opinions are cool, and I think everyone should have them. And so no disrespect at all, Sean. I'm not trying to say that you're wrong or I'm right or anything like that. I do think that it would be good for Gray to get a run of games in his natural position, which is somewhere in the midfield. Kind of a defensive midfield type of role. I think that if we were to see him for a couple of matches in a row, a good run of games in his preferred position, we would have the best chance of seeing him at his best. But yeah.
Well, I mean, you look at Archie Gray, and I know we're not really supposed to be talking about Archie Gray, but you look at
talk
Archie
about whoever
Gray,
we want.
and
Yeah.
all the comments are he lost the ball here, he lost the ball there, or he got tackled here, he got tackled there. But what about the runs that he made with the ball? Or what about the 50, 60 yard cross pass and things like that went to feet instead of going behind the player or miles away from the player? Nobody talks about the positive things that they do. They only ever see the negative. And Tel's just, that's perfect what he's just said. You get this negative thought within your head and you just carry it on and carry it on and carry it on because you don't want to see any positives. Now, I'm not saying with Archie Gray and with Mathys Tel that they're better than what people are saying they are. But what I am saying is there are good things within what they do as well as the bad things. But I mean, I'm maybe the opposite. I maybe only concentrate on the good things that they do, and I get that. I think somebody said to me the other day, I'm one of the most positive people because my cup is always half full. And yeah, it's actually a little bit more than half full. It's probably 3/4 full rather than half empty. But I don't know. As much as I see the bad side of things, I just want to concentrate on the good things. And obviously, some people are the opposite. They just want to concentrate on the bad things. But to me, I'm probably a happier fan than what they are because they just see the negatives and I see the positives. So I'm not saying that they're unhappy, but I maybe get more enjoyment from watching my team because I'm looking only for the positives. So
No, I think of myself kind of as a overly positive person as well, Soren. And I think that's why I like you, is because I think we're similar people in that regard. Life's hard enough as it is. I think there's enough negative in life that I can afford to be a little extra positive, and
yeah,
things still come out in the wash. So yeah, I get you, man, 100%.
I mean the
And
thing is as well when you look at the likes of Archie Gray and probably Mathys Tel as well, maybe the skill set isn't quite there yet. But I tell you what, they have footballing heads. They see things. They see passes. They try things. And yes, sometimes it doesn't come off. And sometimes maybe the game's going a little bit faster than what they're used to, or they're just not quite physical enough, or they're just not quite there. But that doesn't, I mean, I think the one thing that narks me the most is when people say they are shit. You
Right.
are not shit if you are playing for a Premiership team. You are within the 1% of your profession, and you are not shit. You know that these players would run circles round us, and
For
to
sure.
the fact that they have got into a Premiership team means they are not shit. Now, they're maybe not great or they're maybe not good at the particular moment. I mean, a perfect one to actually look at. There's a few reports going around today that Ndombele didn't make their Champions League squad for the team he plays for. Now, he is not a shit player, but he is a shit attitude. But people say he was shit. He wasn't shit. He just didn't want to play. He didn't want to train. He didn't want to do the physics. But he was a very, very talented footballer. There is
One of the
a
most
difference
talented I've ever
between,
seen, probably.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he could have been an absolute. He probably would have been one of these people that carried that word world class. Had he put the, if he had half the determination of a Ronaldo or a Messi or somebody like that, with the skills he had, he would have been challenging for Ballon d'Ors and things like that. But he didn't want to. He couldn't be bothered. He couldn't be asked. But that didn't make him a shit player. It made him a shit person, maybe. But all the skills in the world and did nothing with it. But I mean, he's obviously still playing for a team and earning a lot more money than me and you are ever going to earn.
Yeah.
And look
No,
at,
no doubt.
Archie Gray. If he's a shit player, I tell you what, I'd like to be a shit player earning the money he's earning.
Yeah. No, you make a good point there. You know, Archie Gray is a weird one to me because he was thought of so highly at Leeds. You know, they were. You talk about people being upset about Tell coming here from Bayern. People, Leeds fans, were really upset about losing Archie Gray. You know,
Yeah,
he
I mean,
was super
I
highly regarded there
Leeds
at
is the
Leeds.
next city to me, so
Oh, okay.
you know,
Yeah,
well, I say next, it's not far away from me. It's like 40-minute drive, 30-minute drive, and I know a lot of Leeds fans, and they loved him. He was a big, a big, not a big name, but a big part of what they wanted, and they were upset when he went because they knew. Now, yes, it's a step up, and sometimes it does take a while for these players to get into it. But when you're playing a kid of 18 years old and you're not even playing him in the position he's supposed to play in, he's not going to learn his trade properly. He's going to learn how to be an all-round player. But I mean, people say that we lost games because of him. Well, he wasn't the only one. But it,
for
it
sure.
was it was probably the setup. Now we've brought a monster number 6 in Paulino. He is going to bring Archie Gray on. If Archie Gray has the common sense to watch him and learn from him, he had nobody to learn from last season. We didn't
Very good
have a
point.
number 6, and you know, I just think that in a season or two's time, we will all be sat here talking about how good Archie Gray is.
Yeah, you make a
And
good point. I think
hopefully
we
the same with
probably. I also don't think that he was ever intended to come in and be playing as much
no,
of a part
he
in the
wasn't.
first team as he had to last season.
Yeah,
You know, ideally he would have been very slowly kind of drip fed into the team,
yeah,
but due to the insane injuries we had, we were forced to throw him in the deep end when he, by all accounts, wasn't ready for it. So
yeah. I mean, the thing is, Colin, we all sit here, and I'm talking about virtually all fans now, and we say a player reaches his potential around that 26, 27, 28, 29 years old. Well, Archie Gray's 18, 19. So in theory, he's got another 5 years at least before he reaches his potential. So why are we suddenly expecting him to be a world beater now? I'm not saying he shouldn't maybe be a slightly better player than some people think he is. But I mean, not every kid at 20, 21 is as good as like Xavi, Simons, and I mean, look at Xavi
Right.
Simons. Don't get me wrong. People were touting him from the age of 13, 14. The Euros last year, people were saying how great. I mean, I saw him and thought he's bloody good. He's going to have a big future. And, he was probably 20, 21, whatever he was. Well, he still had 2 or 3 seasons before that where he was struggling to get into the first teams. So if all of a sudden now he's that big name at 22, 23, well, what's to say Archie Gray won't be that big name at 22, 23?
Absolutely. Peter's heading off. Peter, thanks again for the super chat, man. I can't
Yeah,
tell you how much I appreciate that. Have a great day, sir, and I look
yeah,
to see you back soon, man. Drive safe, Peter. But yeah, I get what you're saying. I think that some of these like absolute freak athlete, like young guys, like who am I thinking of?
yeah, no,
Yeah, exactly. You mean yeah? I think that
no,
yep,
no.
he's one of them. Kylian Mbappe has been great for since he was super young. Yeah, some of these players have just kind of broken the mold, and then by doing that, raised everybody's expectations on what they think that an 18, 19-year old should be able to do. When up until a couple of years ago, no one was really doing that. I mean, Wayne Rooney broke through super early, but it's been a rare thing. But now fans expect it out of really young kids.
Yeah. And I think the biggest problem, and I kind of do get this argument from 1 or 2 people, where they say he cost us 40 million and he's not a 40 million pound player. That's not his fault.
Yeah,
That is not his fault. That is between Leeds and Tottenham. They set the price and we paid the price. And we paid 40 million because we feel as a club that his potential was going to be well worth 40 million at that time. Now, you cannot blame the player because he cost 40 million. It just doesn't make sense. It's I mean, if you're going to say that, paying 51 million for Xavi Simons is absolutely ridiculous. But that's the going price these days. And yes, Archie Gray is 11 million pound cheaper, but is that 11 million? Does that show the gap between them? No, there is a far bigger gap than an 11 million pound price tag. But in 3 years' time, there might not be. Archie Gray might be worth 50, 60, 70 million, but he might not be. And this is the problem. In 3 or 4 years' time, Xavi Simons might be worth nothing.
yeah, he could fall off a
So
cliff as far as his form goes, for sure, man.
exactly,
And
yeah,
and I think part of why we're having to spend these crazy high amounts of money on young kids is because rightly or wrongly, I mean wrongly I guess you could just say, but our academy hasn't been producing players that are of the quality that we need, and so we're forced to then go out and buy these players young because we're not producing them, and it's like you said, it's not the players' fault. They
no,
have nothing to do with that. And then I've heard people say things like, well, they still decided to come. They could have said no to the transfer, and they knew they were going to have a lot to prove. I don't know. That argument doesn't really hold water for me.
no. That to me is a ridiculous argument. I mean, if if you get the chance to go and if you're playing for Leeds United and you get the chance to go and play for Tottenham Hotspur, you're not going to sit there and say, "No, I don't really want to come because I don't think I'm quite ready yet."
They're going to pay too much money for me, Soren. That's why I don't want to
Yeah,
go. The fee's
yeah,
going to be too high.
yeah, exactly. I mean, and the thing is, people are sort of liking him, Archie Gray, to Vuskovic this year because he's turned around now and said that he doesn't think he's at the standard to get into the first team. But there's a difference between saying you're not at the standard and not wanting to go out on loan because you want to fight for your place. Because Vuskovic probably knows, unless there are injuries and something drastic goes wrong, he's not going to play. And I think he's a fantastic player. I don't want to see him go on loan, so I'm
Yeah,
not
I was
going that
hoping that
way.
we'd keep him for
Yeah,
sure,
but he wants to play football week
week
in,
in
week
week out.
out. Yeah, he wants to get to that position. So fair play to the lad. He's turned around and said, I don't necessarily believe the fact it's because he doesn't think he's good enough. I just think it's the fact he wants to play. Archie Gray has probably looked at our midfield and thought, do you know what? I could possibly get game time at Tottenham. I'm happy to stay and fight. And it proved right because he maybe didn't get it in the midfield, but he got it within the squad. And I honestly think he's a talented player and he's a very good footballing brain. And
Oh,
he
definitely. You
will,
can tell that he sees things on the pitch
yeah,
the way that a player would need to, you know what I mean,
yeah,
to be able to make an impact. He's
yeah,
got, like you said, a good footballing brain for sure.
yeah. And that's the thing that, we look at him and he's 18 years old, maybe 19 now. So he's still learning the trade. He's it's not like he's a 27, 28-year-old in the peak of his career and he's happy to sit on the, you know, don't think Thomas will tell.
I like
Um,
that. Yeah.
yeah. It's not like he's in the peak of his career and he's happy to sit and just take the money. He's there because he wants to learn, he wants to play for a big team, and he's going to fight for his place. So
And that's
I
and
think
that's
that's
assuming there was even a team come in and wanted him on loan, or that Spurs had even entertained the idea of letting him go on loan.
yeah,
I just think there's so many variables and so many unknowns that it's hard to say. Well, if Vuskovic decided he could go on loan to get some game time, then why couldn't Archie Gray? Well, you don't know. You have no idea if the situations were even comparable. You don't even know if the team was ever going to let him go on loan. I don't know. I just don't think that that's a great argument to make.
I mean, to me, I think you look at them and you've got to look at how many players are in front of them. Well, if you look at Vuskovic, you're probably looking at Romero, Danzo, Dragusin when he comes back, Van der Ven, probably even Davis still at this point. So you've got 4 players still in front of him. So his playing time is going to be harder. You look at Archie Gray. If you're playing him as a number 6, there's only Paulinho in front of him. Now, I'm not saying that people like Benton Kerr and Papsar can't play in that position and won't play in that position, but actually classing them as number 6s, there's only playing. And to me, he is better staying at Tottenham and learning off Paulinho than he is going out on loan to a championship club, say that he'll play week in, week out and not learn anything other than playing time. So I think he's done best, and he'll play. He's obviously in the Champions League. Look, we've picked him for the Champions League squad, so he can't be that bad a player.
True. And even if he were to get minutes in another position, there's something to be said about playing in the system. Hell, even if he plays in defense, I think that you can transfer some of those skills over. I mean,
Yeah,
it'll let him know where he needs to be as a defensive midfielder, where he needs to be stepping into the defense, where he needs to be covering for people. I think that's a good learning experience for him, even if he were to play somewhere in the back line. So,
exactly. And like I say, you've got one of the best number 6s in the Premiership at the moment. I'm not saying the best before anybody comes at me. One of the best number 6s in the Premiership at the moment, or when he's on form. Well, wouldn't you want your future number 6 to learn off that player? Watch his positional play, watch how he does things, learn off him at training. That to me is only a good thing. And again, and going back with Mathys Tel, we are talking about young kids that have not reached their potential yet. So, to me, they're only going to get better. And Mathys Tel will get better.
for sure. And he's a weird one. I think that if we could afford to give him kind of an extended run of games, I think that would do wonders for his development. I think that he maybe should go out on loan, Soren, if I'm being totally honest, because his confidence is absolutely shot. I would think, at least mine would be. If I had gotten the crazy abuse that he's getting, the racial abuse that he's getting, you know, I I think that it would do him a world of good to get 3, 4, 5 games in a row. Just the
And
majority of the minutes.
I mean, maybe that's why Thomas Frank has kept him out of the Champions League squad, is just to keep him away from more abuse and things like that. If he comes on in the Champions League and he has a bad game, so maybe he is just trying to protect him a little bit. Bring him out. I mean, we've got a cup game against Doncaster coming up. That's the perfect game to bring him on. And depending who we get after that, and one or two of the smaller teams in the Premiership, bring them on there. But I just think You know, we scream about wanting to play our youngsters, and then as soon as they come on and have a poor game, we shout them out, and it just doesn't make sense to me. It really doesn't.
Yeah, it's weird. Fans are fickle, and I'm one of those too. You know, I'm guilty of that at times, and so I can't get on my high horse and look down on anybody for it. But like, it's just like you said. You know, we all want to see the youngsters. We all kind of, especially when things aren't going well for the team, we say, put the young kids on, see what the kids can do. And like you said, they have a bad match or two, or you know, we have a penalty shootout and they miss their penalty, or you know, we're just quick to turn on players. It seems like, and I wish that we give them a little bit more of a chance. Jimmy
I mean,
Hotspur in the house. Sorry about that. Sorry to cut
yeah,
you
no,
off.
yeah, go on.
Uh,
I was going to talk about this one as well.
oh, sweet. Yeah, he says,
Yeah.
truth is with youngsters, nobody knows the outcome of each player. It's just personal opinion. However, what you have seen from Gray, Odebear, and Tell to make you think, oh, what have you seen from Gray, Odebear, or Tell to make you think they're going to make it the top flight? Well, from Gray, I've just seen a lot of maturity. You know, just his willingness to just come on and help the team, especially last season where we were absolutely just fucked beyond belief. Um, yeah, I don't know. I think that I've seen from Gray. Gray's the one we've seen the most from. I think it's, you know, it's easiest to kind of pick him out of here and use him as an example. But his positional sense looks good. He looks like he's, as a young man, he's been able to kind of get in the mix and kind of you know, get in there with like grown men and kind of throw his weight around and um, get into kind of some 50-50 battles with people. I don't know. I mean, Jimmy, not a lot. You know, we haven't seen a ton to make me think that they're going to be able to make it, but I'm also not ready to give up on him yet. But Soren, you were getting ready to come in.
Yeah, I mean, if we go through them, so let's slightly backwind first. How many of if you took every single Premiership player now, how many of those would have all been playing at 18 for the first 11 in whichever club they play for? Not many. I mean, you know, there are always exceptions, but a lot of them wouldn't come. If you look at the majority of players and you go back over, say, the last 10 seasons, so we're not just talking about this season, last season, season before, the majority of them probably start hitting first team form and playing regular around the 21, 22, 23 year old mark. Up to then, they go on a lot of loans, they'll be back up, they'll come off the bench, things like that. So basically, Archie Gray, 18, still got a couple of years to learn his trade. Mathys Tel, I think he's 21, is he now? 20, 21?
20, I
Um,
think.
20, yeah. So I think he's still in the under 21s, isn't it? So again, he's still got chance. He's one that hasn't had a lot of first team games. Odebear, he's already had one season in the Premiership, and now he's obviously before he came to us, should I say? And then he's gone down. We've bought him, and you know, you look at Mathys Tel, you look at Odebear. They're playing for their under 21s for the national teams. They're well thought of in their national teams. So therefore, that tells you that they are decent players. You know, again, when we talk about you, yes, it's an under 21s, and they don't always make it. But you don't play for your under 21 squad at national level if you're not very good neither. So you look at Archie Gray. Gray has played under 21s. He's been to tournaments. He was a starter every single week at Leeds. He was well thought of. He came to the Premiership. He played out of position. What did he play? Twice in midfield for under Ange, and
Very few games. Yeah,
you can't
I
tell
was thinking
me.
less than five for sure, but
Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably two or three maximum. Because he came on once and then got injured, didn't he? And then he started against Liverpool,
mm-hmm.
and can't think of another game where he actually started as a number six. But you know, you look at them and if when people say what have they done, if you actually dissect every single minute that they played, there were a lot of good things that they did, rather than a lot of crap things that they did. It was a bit of a mixture of both, but they both played well. Um, so I'm just
Oh, you're good. I brought
Yeah,
up
I mean,
the next one.
yeah, I'm just trying to read Jimmy's last one. Yeah, I mean, dropping 40 million on 30 million. And look, I get the argument that people come in, but we sort of mentioned this a bit ago. It's not their fault. It's not their fault that we paid 40, 30 million for them. That's the that seems to be a thing that a lot of teams are doing now. Everybody's going in to buy these youngsters. And we were not the only one wanting to buy Archie Gray at 40 million. There were other teams in for him. So that was the price he went for, and that was the price we've paid. We've paid that because we see a future within Archie Gray playing at Tottenham. Now, that doesn't necessarily equate to what some fans want because they want to pay 40 million for an oven ready player right now that walks into the first 11. And I get that argument. But again, we can't blame Archie Gray for it. It doesn't make him a bad player because we overpaid. So it's an impossibility that you've hopefully paid 40 million for a player that in 2, 3, 4 seasons may be a 70, 80 million pound player. That's the thinking behind you paying that for these youngsters. It might work, it might not. I mean, what happens if we've paid 40 million for argument's sake and we've paid 35 for Tel and whatever it was for Odebear, and they stay with us for the next 10 years and they are absolutely fantastic players? Did we overpay then?
Right, and I think that honestly, Soren, they might not even have to. For me, all they have to do is live up to that price tag. They don't even have to be worth more than that later.
Yeah.
I think as long as we get them and they play to the potential of a 40 million pound player at some point, I think that's why you pay so much is because, like you said, there's multiple clubs in for them, and so you're kind of, for one, you're paying a premium to make sure that you get them over other clubs,
Mm.
and to make sure that I mean, you're right. If you went ahead and waited for them to develop, you're right. They could easily develop and be more expensive. But I think as long as they live up to that price tag eventually, I don't think that we should ever be relying on young players as young as them, regardless
Yeah.
of price tag, to come in and make an immediate impact anyway.
I mean, the one thing Jimmy just come back and said, yeah, I mean, I think we're both kind of agreeing on certain terms of it, but let's just add a slightly different part to it as well. If he was coming from Holland, if he was coming from France, if he was coming from Belgium, Switzerland, he'd be a £20, £20 million player. But because he's an English homegrown player, we are paying extra. He's coming from an English team to an English team, so again, you're paying extra. I would argue that, like I say, had Archie Gray come from Switzerland, like Bergvall did, he would have been a 10, 15, 20 million pound player. We wouldn't be having this argument. That's the difference. But because we did pay 40 million for him, we're having this argument. The only argument that I think we should be having with this is forget the price tag. Pretend he was free. It's not our money. We didn't pay anything for him. We give him a chance. Yes, for me, we give him a chance. You've
But
got
then
to
I
you've
think
got to get past that 40 million pound price tag.
for sure, and I think a lot of times people too, Soren, will think, well, since he costs that much money, that's money from the transfer fund that's just gone now, or that we don't get to spend on another player. But that's assuming that the money was ever going to be spent in the first place. I mean, it's just
I
you just
think
can't. It's not exactly 1 + 1 = 2 sometimes with transfers and budgets. It's not. I just don't. We just can't say for sure that money was ever going to be. If we hadn't spent the money on Archie Gray or Odebear or Tell, we're not even. I'm sometimes there's money supposedly in the transfer budget and then it's just gone. Doesn't ever get spent anyway. I would rather us get somebody in the door than
yeah, but I
nobody.
think I think there is an argument against that one, Colin, because I don't know if you remember, not long after the window closed, Ange Postecoglou did come out and he said Archie Gray at the beginning was not. We were watching him, but he was not the target. It was only the fact that somebody else went in to buy him that we suddenly went for him. The target was elsewhere. So the money was there, and we were looking at other players. But because it was a case of if we don't buy him now, we may not get him, or we may pay more later on.
Hmm.
They went for him there and then. And it was a unanimous decision that they would buy Archie Gray. Now, Jimmy's come back and said, why not buy a Dutch or French? That's for the hierarchy to to argue. I would argue the fact of the reason we've paid 40 million for Archie Gray rather than going to the Dutch leagues and things like that to get a cheaper player is the homegrown quota going forward. I think that we this is the argument we've been having over the Champions League squads. We haven't got enough homegrown, home trained players within the squad, and that's the problem. Where with players like Archie Gray, you have to pay that premium to get those players in. Now we say, well, why not go abroad and get them then? So in a sense, we have with Tel and with Odebear. I know Odebear was playing in England anyway, but we've gone abroad. We've got Bergval, and if you look over previous years, I think there was Onkondu and all those players. The French ones that we got in, and they didn't work. And I'm not saying I sit here hoping Archie Gray is going to work. I sit here hoping Odebear is going to work, Tel's going to work. But these are players that have been highlighted as potential great players, good players, superstars, whatever we want to call them, of the future. And I mean, I've sat there with a few people, I think yourself and a couple of other streams, where we've said, you look at the squad now, and we're talking however many players under the age of 23, 24. When they, when the older ones reach potential in 4 years, 3 years, if this squad is still together and those players get to anywhere near what we're hoping they're going to get to, we have a tremendous squad. Absolutely tremendous. Let's look at it. Mikey Moore comes back, Lancashire, Tell, Odebear, Johnson, Simmons, Gray, Bergval, Van der Ven, Udogi, Spence, all under 23, 24, basically.
Vuskovic.
Vuskovic. I mean, in a sense, Romero and Van der Ven, they've still got 4, 5, 6 good years. Well, Van der Ven's got longer, obviously, but, you look at the squad as a whole, and nobody, you don't want a whole squad in a sense of everybody being a superstar, because that doesn't always work. As much as it does work, it doesn't always. Sometimes you're better having a squad that gels together and has 2, 3, 4, 5 seasons together. And look at what happens. I mean, go back to the Poch era. That team was together for quite a few seasons, and they got better and better and better until they reached their pinnacle. Champions League, second and third in the Premiership. What's to say this team couldn't do that in 2, 3, 4 seasons?
Absolutely. And you made another good point about too about not having an entire team of superstars. One, because those players tend to get poached away, and so they wouldn't likely have these years and years together that would be needed for them to gel to be the team that you're talking about. And two, just because sometimes it's hard to to manage that many egos within one team. You need some players that are kind of more like a workhorse, that'll work hard and that'll fight rather than being some incredible talent. So yeah, good points, man.
Just to quickly answer that one that Jimmy's just put up. I get the spending 110 on 2 decent players, and then what happens if both those players get injured,
or they both don't work out, and
they don't want to
have trouble shifting them.
And again, unless you're buying actual Prem proven players, there's no guarantee that because they've been superstars where they've come from. I mean, we're all expecting Xavi Simons and Muani to be absolute superstars. Doesn't mean they will be. And I mean, the chances are that they are going to be. Don't get me wrong, but there's every chance that they might not succeed in the Premiership. I mean, you look at say Brian Hill. He had the potential was there, but he couldn't. He couldn't do it in the Premiership. You look at Janssen. I mean, Janssen was ripping it up in the Dutch league, wasn't he? And then couldn't score. Couldn't hit the bloody barn door.
Oh man, what was that one guy? Soldado, Roberto Soldado. Soldado. Yeah, that guy was
Yeah. I mean,
year
you
after
look at
year
him
had
in
been doing it in
Spain.
Spain.
Yeah.
But
But the problem with Soldado, which a lot of people overlook, if you actually go back and watch him play for Tottenham, he makes some incredible runs, and the ball never goes to him.
yeah,
The ball never goes to him.
he depended
So,
a lot on service
yeah,
whenever he was in
a
Spain.
striker. I mean, go back even further than that. Rebrov. What was the problem with buying Rebrov? He was part of a two-man strike force with probably the most lethal striker for a long, long time, and we buy the other one and expect him to be up front on his own. It doesn't work.
Yep. Yeah, we kind of have a habit of doing that in the past of not really paying attention to the circumstances around why a player was good where they were, bringing them in and then expecting them to just be able to replicate that here without, the same player surrounding them for sure. We got Grown Up North in the house. What's up? Says the reality is we overpaid on Richie, Dom Solanke, and total cost of Tell, who is still too lightweight for the Prem. Man, I agree. I'd agree with Solanke. I think that we probably did overpay there. That's the only one out of that list. And maybe you, Soren, maybe you disagree with me there, but I don't know. I
Well,
don't
the
think I've ever
argument
talked to
for
you
this
about
one.
Dominic Solanke before.
Yeah, but I mean, there is a perfect argument against this. So when we're going in for a player, what's the first thing after the fans shout? Just pay the money. Doesn't matter what it costs us, just pay the money. So then you pay the money, and all of a sudden we've overpaid. Well, do you want us to pay the money to get the player that the manager wants, or do you want us not to pay the money and then don't get the player the manager wants? So by saying again that we've overpaid, to you, to me, to Grown Up North, people like Jimmy and Adrian and whoever else is in the chat, we look at the cost of Rich Arlison, we look at the cost of Brennan Johnson, we look at the cost of Archie Gray, and we say we've overpaid. And I don't think there's an argument against that. But they've bought the players they believe are right for the team. Now, if you went back to when we bought Richie, we were looking for a striker to one day take over from Harry Kane, but to sit on the bench and play when Harry Kane either got injured or couldn't play. Not many top strikers are going to come and sit on a bench waiting for Harry Kane to not play. So Richie was happy to come in. We paid 60 million for him. Had he not been injured, he would have been a player that scored a lot more goals than he has.
Without a doubt, yeah.
But the fact that he's been injured is half the reason nobody wants him at the club. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying he's a great footballer before you come at me, but had he played, say, another 25, 30 games over the last 2 seasons, then he would have been probably hitting 15, 20, 25 goals a season.
Yeah.
But because he didn't, he isn't. And, if he did play that many games, then could the argument still be that we've overpaid for him? Because I don't think, you probably argue then that we haven't. Solanke, we pay, I can't remember what we paid for Solanke, but
60-ish.
Yeah. Now, the argument with Solanke and with Richarlison is they played the system how Ange Postecoglou asked them to play. So is that their fault that they haven't scored enough, or is it Ange's fault for playing them in a system that didn't allow them to score as much? And then when they did get the chance to score, they were rusty at hitting the net because that's not what they were basically there. And if you watch a lot of the games that Richie played under Ange, and then a little bit with Solanke, we were more solid, if you can call it solid under Ange, but we were a better team defensively with Richie in the team than what we were without him because of the amount of closing down and the amount of running around that he did up front. So he defended from the front. Same as Solanke. The idea behind Ange's system was that the left and the right wingers scored the goals, not the striker. The striker was there to sort of solidify the midfield in a sense.
Yeah, bring
Now,
other players into the game.
exactly. Now, under Frank, you will see a totally different system with Solanke and Ritchie. The problem is obviously Solanke's injured again.
Yeah, that's its own
Ritchie,
problem there for sure.
yeah, and you look at them and think, right, well, let's see what Muani does, because he's probably going to play number 9. And look, if he doesn't score loads of goals, then is it a system problem or is it a player problem?
Yeah,
I mean, you
yeah.
look at Harry Kane. How many times did we see Harry Kane on the halfway line? And he was, I sat there a lot of times with Harry Kane saying, "Why aren't you in the box? Why aren't you further? The ball's gone past you. You're a striker. Get in the box." But he scored so many goals, and you could kind of see that with Ritchie and Solanke, that they weren't the furthest forward as strikers. They were further back because they were playing that defensive role. Now, that's where you see the difference in ability is when Harry Kane could still score lots of goals, but Ritchie and Solanke couldn't. Now, I don't know. I mean, we'll never know. And the arguments will come that this statement will be wrong. But maybe Harry Kane would not have been as good in an Ange Postecoglou system. I don't believe that's true, but we'll never know.
I was gonna say we need to stop. I mean, I don't know. You can shit on like Levy all you want for saying that he doesn't back managers, but he does. He'll buy a player or two at least a window. It seems like for each manager that we have. And I think that if we just got rid of this like in and out of new managers all the time thing, we could actually have a manager have some time to build and get players in that they want multiple windows, and we wouldn't have managers then stuck with the previous manager's players so much. And I think that's part of what we're dealing with now too with players like Ritchie and Slanky and stuff, is that I don't think that Frank would have maybe picked him out. So I think that's part of what we're seeing now too, is we're just still stuck with players that were brought in for other managers that just don't fit the current system. Um,
I mean, just
Jimmy,
to answer Grown Up North's next comment, don't forget when Ritchie played at Everton, he was playing left wing, not striker.
true.
We're,
Yeah,
we're, we're comparing him there to Darren Bent and Chris Armstrong, who were strikers. Yes, he's playing as a striker now for Tottenham, but at the time he was a left winger. And that's where he's played a lot of his games, and for Tottenham on the left. So, when we say he's got 13 goals, well, if Odegaard and Tel get 13 goals or Kudos gets 13 goals this season, I think we'd be quite happy.
it's a very good point. Yeah, yeah. Richarlison's a weird one, and yeah, I mean, he was a huge deal at Everton. He was loved by them, but you also have to think he was at Everton. Like I if you would have taken how good he was that season and placed him into a better team, he might have scored more goals than that too. Soren, you have to think that, I mean, we're just talking about Everton, which not exactly a team of world beaters there. So
And
not
you look
exactly
at
surrounded by the most quality.
Yeah, but you look at Jamie Vardy. I mean, he was absolutely lethal at Leicester. If
True.
you brought him to Tottenham, he might not be the same player because we would have played him differently. And this is the problem. You've got to sometimes look at the systems that they're playing. You can go out and buy the most prolific striker out there, and again, I mean, this is a thought process rather than, I'm not trying to say it's right or it's wrong. But if you go back to, say, under Conte, you had probably the best striker duo in the world, maybe, with Harry Kane and Sonny at
Yeah.
peak. You take Sonny out of that, how many goals then does Harry Kane score?
Hmm.
Now,
It's a good.
I'm not saying he wouldn't score, but them two together, Sonny made so many goals for Harry Kane. And I mean, we've obviously seen him go to Germany and he's still scoring. So it kind of disproved. But
But
doesn't mean to
he's
say that
surrounded by quality players in Germany too, though. You know what I
exactly.
mean? Like,
You
yeah,
take Sonny out of the Tottenham team back then,
yeah.
and he wouldn't have. He'd have still scored a lot of goals,
But
but
he
he
wouldn't
wouldn't
have.
have scored what he scored.
Yeah, defenders could have paid more attention to him. I mean, with Sonny and Kane in the team, you kept opposition defenses honest because they had to pay attention to both of them. I get what you're saying.
Yeah,
I'm with you.
and you bring that into Tottenham. I mean, you look at this year. If you've got, say, a Harry Kane up front now, and you've got Mohamed Kudus, and then you put Xavi or Muani on the left, those goals will be scored because you've suddenly brought some quality in. And who's to say, when Xavi starts playing, if you've got balls being pinged in from the left and the right, and balls going through, what's to say Richie won't score? What's to say Solanke won't score if he's playing? What's to say if Mathys Tel had to come on as a striker, he wouldn't score? These are all things we don't really know, but until you build an understanding with the rest of your players, you don't know what's going to happen. And you look at Richie, we've all said, Richie, if you pass Richie and he's got to actually do something with the ball before he can score, he's got no chance. You put a ball in there where he literally either heads it or kicks it first go, he's got a chance of scoring. Now, if you've got Kudos and you've got Xavi Simons, say, on the left, suddenly start pinging some balls in to the strength, which in theory is his heading, he's going to score goals. But if you play the ball behind him or play it in front and he's got to run on, tackle, go around a player and then score, it's not going to happen. He's not that type of striker.
Yeah, Richie's a weird one, just all around. I think that he's
Yeah.
a hard player to quantify for sure.
So that's an hour and 12 minutes, and we haven't really spoke about Tel not being in the Champions League.
I unplugged my microphone.
I can still hear you.
All right. Can you hear me okay, Soren?
Yeah, I could hear you all the time.
Perfect. I unplugged my mic. Sorry about that. Not very professional of me. Grown Up North says, great show, by the way. Subbed and keen to see it grow. Well, man, I appreciate that a ton. Thanks a lot. I really appreciate it, man. Right as soon as you were saying it's a great show, I unplugged all my equipment. But hey, it happens. We got Nick making fun of me a little bit, but that's good. Roundtable talk. Glad to have you here, man. Grown Up North, glad you're here, man. Please continue to show up. We won't disappoint. We always have some good stuff going on here. The last thing I wanted to talk about, Soren, was Lookman. And, this has all been beat to death on other channels. So I appreciate you coming here and rehashing it all with me. But it looked like with him, I've seen some stuff come out with the last day or so saying that with him, Spurs wanted to bring him in with an option to buy, whereas Atalanta wanted an obligation to buy attached to the loan. Have you heard that?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard quite a few rumours. Some say that they only wanted to sell. Some it had to be an obligation. I think if you are that desperate to get the player in, and I mean, it wasn't a massive amount of money when we go back to saying how much Archie Gray cost compared to what Lookman could have cost. But let's look at it a slightly different way. He has never done it in the Premiership. He's had a couple of chances in the Premiership, and he's never really done it. He's gone abroad. He's had a fantastic season, and all of a sudden, fans are losing the shit over it. He might not have worked, and that's why the club wanted an option rather than an obligation. Now, to me, what I would have turned around if I'd have been Daniel Levy and I really wanted to bring him in, I would have said to them, right, we'll do the option to buy, but we make it so it's very easy for that option to be triggered. So if he does, or you do the obligation and say, he must do this, he must do that before we'll buy him. So he must play 20 games this season. He must score this, or we must win a trophy. You put things that are definitely reachable, maybe not the trophy part, but there could have been ways, but that to me tells me that we didn't want him that much.
Oh,
He
for
was
sure.
not
Me too.
first. Yeah, he was not first option. The problem that you get when you get this scenario is the fans who know the best, know more than the club knows. They're the ones that are shouting the loudest about we should have got Lookman, we should have got this player, we should have done that. well, if he wasn't a priority, then we shouldn't have got him. And those
Right.
same fans will be the same fans that lambast Levy and everybody else because we've bought a player that the manager didn't want. Now, I'm not saying
Exactly.
Frank didn't want him,
I
but there's
am.
obviously a reason we didn't get him.
Yeah, exactly. And there were clearly players that were higher up on the list that they wanted. And to me, I want to see if this makes sense to you. But to me, it seems like if he was as easy to bring as he was, and we still decided not to, it tells me that they think that they've got a chance still at getting one of the players on the list that were higher up the list to begin with. So I think that we still have hopes of getting in Savino or who else are we looking at? Leao, how are you pronounce that guy's name?
Yeah,
But
there was a couple, wasn't there? I mean,
yeah,
there's even talk today that there's every chance we could go back in January and get Morgan Gibbs White for the same money that we bid.
okay, yeah, no, that
You know what I
I'm
mean?
I'm down for
It,
that.
it's crazy. But again, this is where I think, as fans, we've got to sit down and say, right, if we'd have wanted those players, I believe we would have got them. If we really wanted them, if Thomas Frank decided he really wanted Lookman, then I don't understand why we wouldn't have got him. We'd have done whatever. And you look at it and you think he's probably looked at what he's got. And I know, the majority of this chat has been about Tel and Odebear not being good enough. But obviously, Thomas Frank has looked at what he's got on the left and thought, I've got enough. Now, I mean, I don't know. I still think we'll see Xavi Simons playing from the left. And I think what Thomas Frank, and I could be absolutely miles away, but I think Thomas Frank has looked at it and thought, Papsar, Bentancur, Paulinho in the middle, keep that middle strong, and then you play Xavi Simons on the left, Kudos on the right, Muani down the centre. You've got a brand new front three. You've got scary front three. If them three players hit form, they are three very, very good players. And look, I mean, the other side to it is, yeah, we didn't buy Lookman. Who bought him? Nobody.
No one, yeah, exactly. There,
That's what he
that
didn't.
that leads me to think maybe there was something else too, like an attitude problem, or because famously Thomas Frank doesn't like dickheads, which who does, right? I mean, that's not the craziest thing I've ever heard, but I do like that he does call it a no dickhead policy. That's kind of a refreshing thing to hear a manager say. But yeah, I mean, if it was that good of an option to bring into your squad, then you're right. Somebody across the top five leagues in Europe would have brought him in. You would think, and I know that he didn't want to go just anywhere. I think he did kind of have the desire to come back and prove himself in the Premier League. It seemed like to me at least. Um, and
Well, I
one thing
mean,
too. Oh, sorry.
yeah, it seemed like a no-brainer to us all that Lookman should be a Tottenham player now. And I don't think there's not many people out there that would say we didn't want him.
Yeah.
But the argument is, as 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 good a player as he hasn't done it in the Premiership. And that's not to say he wouldn't. It's not to
Right.
say he couldn't. But there is obviously, I look at it this way. All the ones that there were a lot of noise about, we didn't sign any of them. All the ones that all of a sudden it was, oh, Tottenham are in for him, bang, that we've signed him. So Lookman to me was one of those that we were looking at him, we were probably talking to him, but were we ever that serious about buying him? Now, if he was as high on Thomas Frank's list as what he is on a lot of fans' lists, I think we would have had him. But like you just said, in that to me, the fact that we didn't sign him because everybody told us how easy a deal it was tells us that he wasn't a priority for Thomas Frank and the club. So therefore, we're either happy with the squad we've got, or we know that we will be buying somebody very, say January or maybe even next summer. I don't know. But there is obviously a plan A, and he was plan B.
Right, and we're the same. I mean, this is the same fan base that we talk about how we oftentimes will buy the plan B or C and then be stuck with that player for for a long time, unable to sell them and recoup our money, or you know, it just seems like I don't want a player if the manager didn't want him. And with me, Soren, it's not that I didn't think that he could do it in the Premier League, because we've seen players in the past not do it in the Premier League, or have a bad season or two in the Premier League and then leave, get the experience they need in Europe somewhere, and then come back. Look at Mo Salah, for example. I know that not everyone's going to be Mohamed Salah, but still, yeah, he's a great example of this happening. And then so I'm sure that Lookman could have performed okay in the league. He did, like Jimmy's saying here. He did a great job in the Europa League. So
Yeah, I
I
mean, but this is the thing that how many times have we signed a player that has had a great season somewhere, or has looked good somewhere, or has had a great World Cup or a Europa Cup, and they've come to us, and I'm not just Tottenham, other teams, and they just haven't done it. But then again, you could say the opposite. How many times have we had a player that's gone on and been great? I mean, you look at, like you say, Salah. Who's the other one? That what the hell? Who's the one? Chelsea had another one recently where they let him go and he's come back and he's been great. I can't think of who I'm thinking of.
I can't. I feel like I
What
knew
about,
another player, but
yeah? I mean, is it Cole Palmer? Who did he play for before he went to Chelsea?
City. Yeah, Cole Palmer
Yeah.
came from City first.
And look, Savino, didn't he go and come back? There's been other players with City that they've let him go and they've come back and been fantastic. There's such a big list where just because they've either failed or been a success doesn't mean to say they will do it elsewhere. And like we were saying earlier, Rebro, Soldado, great players at the time, and then they've come to us and been rubbish. And there's probably others that you could mention that have done exactly the same. So there is, like we say, to me, there is get down. There is obviously a reason. It's dinner time for them. So there is obviously a reason that we didn't sign him in the end, and it's not just because of faffing about and Daniel Levy. He obviously wasn't enough of a priority for us to say, right, yes, let's just get it done. So to me, the fact that if we did faff around, if we did mess it up, tells me he wasn't a big enough priority for Thomas Frank and the club to go out and buy him. We went out and bought Xavi Simons, whatever it took, we got him. So,
Right, put him on
kudos.
higher wages than we normally put players on. We
Yeah,
gave him a much longer contract than we normally give players,
yeah,
because we were matching what he was going to get from Chelsea, because we wanted to make sure the deal got done for sure. Yeah,
yeah. Yeah, I
I'm with you.
mean, just like Solanke, I mean, the problem was with Solanke, for me, Ange Postecoglou looked at Solanke and thought, he is the perfect striker for my system. That's who I want. It's not about necessarily being prolific. It's about the work rate. And that's why when we looked at him and Ivan Toney didn't get a look in because he wanted Solanke because he fit that system. Now, I could guarantee you, if we went back a year, 2 years, whatever it was it last summer we bought Solanke? If we went back then and Thomas Frank was in charge, we wouldn't have been looking at Solanke. We'd have been looking at somebody else. So it was all about the system and how that player fitted into the system for that manager. And you look at it and think, well, that's why. If you went out now and it was a case of Solanke or Muani or whoever, we would not have bought Solanke. Simple.
I just hope that we'll be able to get rid of him eventually. I know that sounds terrible, but with his injury record lately, Soren, I'm just afraid that we're going to be kind of perpetually stuck with that guy. And I don't think that See, I'm not usually the one to be like, get this player out of here. I don't think they're good enough for the club, but I just don't think Solanke's going to be a good fit long term. And I feel like we're kind of perpetually stuck with Richie as it is. I think he's going to be somebody that's hard to get rid of. And so I feel like, yeah, it would just be a
Frankie
shame if
didn't do
we
too bad though. Who was it? Was he at Brentford or Bournemouth?
Bournemouth. Yeah,
Bournemouth. I mean, he played pretty decent at Bournemouth, and that's why we obviously bought him in the end. Under Tom, I mean, the thing is, we don't know what he'll be like under Thomas Frank because he hasn't basically played for him. I mean, what 3 games into the Premiership? Is it? We've only played 3, haven't we? Seems like more, but
yeah, correct, 3. Yep,
so
Burnley,
we've played,
City, and yeah,
yeah, we've played 3 games. Richie's obviously started up front. Solanke's been injured, and we're saying he's not good enough for the system. Well, how do we know?
that's true.
Um, yeah, I mean, you say, Solanke's had 1 good season in 7. People are on about, like Kudos. Kudos was terrible last year in a West Ham team, but he's ripping it up this season. Well, if we'd only went on what we saw last season, we probably wouldn't have really bought him. It's only because we know he's done well previous to that, and I think the problem is we all sit and look at players and we think this is what we want. This is the player we want because we want to go out and score loads of goals. We want to do this. We want a prolific striker. We want the best striker in the world. Not too long since we were on about wanting Hakimi at right back, and you look at it and you think, well, one, we're not going to get those players, and two, the players we are going to get are going to go into a system that doesn't suit. So, I mean, I don't know. We looked at Muani last season. What's to say he would have played well under Ange? Would he have? Would he have done all the chasing down and things like that? I don't
Probably
know.
not. Yeah,
No. You look at. Let's think of another. I mean, look at Goiker. Everybody wanted Goikerez. I mean, I'm not saying he's not going to come good, but if we'd
yeah.
have bought
So
him and
far,
he'd have
nothing
had,
special.
yeah, but if he'd have had the start he had for Arsenal with us, we'd all be slating him now.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But yeah, everybody and his dog wanted Goikerez last year, leading into the summer. Goikerez was the big name. Get him in, get him in, get it. Don't matter what it cost us. Get him in. Where
Yeah,
is he now?
I think it just goes to show how how hit or miss transfers can be just kind of in and of themselves, and then I think it just goes to show a little bit about the modern football fan. We all want results right away. I guess it kind of goes back to the beginning of the show, Soren. We tend to judge players a little too quickly, and yeah, patience never hurt anybody. And I think that I don't know. I guess I'm willing to give Solanke a chance in this system. For one, what choice do I have, right? Like, it's not like I
I
can.
mean, yeah, the thing is, we've obviously, in theory, Solanke could now be third choice because once Muani hits the ground, he'll be first choice.
Oh yeah,
Richie will be second choice. Solanke will be third choice. Unless Richie's injured, then Solanke becomes second choice if he's playing. But I mean, at the moment, Solanke's out for however long now. So it's about Richie and Muani. But you can guarantee, come first game or second game after break, it'll be Muani starting up front and probably Simmons on the left. So everything that we've spoke about so far is pointless.
yeah,
Unless
yeah.
Muani is absolutely. I mean, we're all expecting Muani to come in and do it. Well, what's to say he will cope in the Premiership?
I like this comment by Grown Up North here. It says nobody played well under Ange. You can't play well in a bad system. Um, interesting thing we've got. Uh, the interesting
I'll
thing we've got on
disagree with
defense.
that. Van de Ven played well.
That's true, and I guess Vicario didn't look awful. You know,
I don't know whether I would fully agree with that.
I said it didn't look awful. Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, to me, Van de Ven's probably the one that stands out as being the one that played well because it suited his system.
For
apart
sure.
from getting injured all the time.
Yeah, that's true. He couldn't stay fit because of all the insane
Yeah.
runs he had to make, but he was able to make all those insane runs. Yeah, you're right. It did sort of seem like
But you see, you could go back, and I know it's an argument that's kind of flawed, but go back to those first 10 games under Ange, and every player played well. You know, I mean, we were, how many times were we sat there saying, well, Maddison was man at match, or Basuma was man at match, or somebody else was man of the match, and everybody was scoring. Midfield was scoring left, right, and centre, and any one of them could have been man of the match. And it was only when we hit that Chelsea game and we had 2 sendings off, was it 3 sendings off, 2 injuries, 3 injuries, and it all fell to bits. And then everything went downhill after that. Well, the argument could be, had we won that Chelsea game, it would have kept rolling and rolling and rolling. And maybe the players would have played better. But then you slightly go back and say, well, nobody played well under Ange. Well, they played well enough to win a European trophy.
it's true. But I do get the point though. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I get it. I get it very much. I mean, I would agree with him because we sat here and even Porro looked terrible under Ange. You know, his defending was absolutely shocking at times. Actually, there was another one. Spence played well.
It's true. Yeah. Which
But
was
yeah, I mean,
weird because we had all been giving up on that guy. So yeah, I guess
yeah,
it just goes to show, you can't really, you can't really write a player off, especially when there's a new manager coming in.
yeah. I mean, look, we said at the beginning of the season or beginning of or the end of last season when Ange went and Frank came in, and I was one of the ones that said we do. Every player to me gets a clean sheet now because it's going to be a totally different system, and who knows? I mean, look at the game Richie had when he scored the overhead kick. He looked pretty decent in that game. That was an absolutely fantastic goal. The whole squad looked better. The whole squad looked pretty decent against PSG for the first 75, 80 minutes. You look at the squad that played City, I mean, they all played pretty well. There wasn't really any bad players in. It was only the last game when we suddenly got beat by 1 goal. First goal we've conceded in the Prem this season, and it was a deflection. Had that not been a deflection, it wasn't going to be a goal. And we're all sort of doom and gloom about things. And, it's too early in the season to start writing any player off or to start saying they're going to be the best player we've ever had. So I think it's going to
Still
be,
plenty of positivity from me, man. And
yeah,
players like you talked about Sarr earlier. Sarr was absolutely crazy for me for the PSG match and then Burnley and City. I thought that Sarr looked incredible, was just popping up all over the place. He's not like a traditional like 10, but I think having him there allows us to kind of, I don't know, defend from the front a little more. And it's
tell you who
force
Star reminds
turnovers.
me of. And I've said this from the very day he came to play for Tottenham. And I know somebody else says the exact same thing. So hopefully we're in good stead. We both basically said it at the same time on 2 different shows. And perhaps that reminds me of Patrick Vieira.
Oh, I've heard somebody else say that too. I can't remember
Yeah.
who else.
And Johnny says it a lot as well. And
Ah,
it's the way he can run with the ball, the way the energy he's got, the way he plays. And he will be a massive player. Quite a few of us said from the very beginning, Pap Sarr was going to be a very big player. Under Ange, he had a couple of decent games. Under Frank, he's had a couple of very good games. And again, he's only 22. So, we're looking at a young kid again. It's some players will be absolutely fantastic this season, and some players will just be average again. We look at Bergvall. I mean, nobody expected him to do what he did last season. He was tremendous. But yet he's not really getting a look in now under Thomas Frank. So what does that tell us? It doesn't mean he's suddenly a bad player. It just means he's going to have to bide his time. But he will be another big player.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's part of me, does it at all worry you that we haven't that Bentancur hasn't signed a new contract yet? Less than a year left. I think he's got like 10 months left on his deal.
Is that all he's got left?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Um,
I was reading about that yesterday.
I would argue the fact of I think they must be fairly confident he will sign because one, I think he would have probably gone, or two, I'd be very surprised if we were making him such a mainstay in the centre of our midfield if he was going. I think we would have replaced him or done something. So I think they're probably pretty confident that he's going to sign. But look, if he doesn't, he doesn't. Maybe that's what we'll look at next year. Maybe that's why, in a sense, we've got Bergvall coming through. We've got Archie Gray in a year's time. Could be a lot better player. So you've got two there. Perhaps Sar's only going to get stronger. So, if Benton Kerr does go, then are we that bad if he goes next year?
Yeah, and I guess too it depends on if we keep Paulinho. I mean, he's only on loan this season, and he's not the youngest guy ever. But I
is
mean,
that
as
an
long as we keep him
obligation
around,
or is it? I can't
I
remember if
don't
he's.
honestly.
No, I
People have
don't.
been talking about it as if it was. People have said, if we trigger. So I think he might have an obligation. Did anyone in the chat, if you guys know, feel free to drop it in. Do we have an obligation to grab Paulinho at the end of the season, or just an option?
Yeah, I
But
mean, to me, I'd be very surprised if we don't because obviously, he's not really making full 90 minutes at the moment. But again, he didn't play much last season neither. So the fact he didn't play much last season probably prolongs his career a little bit.
yeah, that's
So
a good point. Less minutes in his legs for sure.
yeah, so again, how strenuous is that number six role? I don't know. I mean, some people might say it's a lot of running. Some people will probably say it's not as much. It's not like a box to box type role, is it? Where you've got a lot of mileage, but
True, but he
look,
he seems to play more with he seems to do more running. Some players I think can play that position more like positionally. I guess their positioning kind of makes up for some of the running, but he does
yeah.
seem to kind of be all over the place. So I don't know. He puts a considerable amount of running in per match.
I mean, I think Paulinho is going to be. I've said he's going to be the big understated player this season. Um, I think he is the one quietly will win us more games than we lose because of he
Yeah,
he will
so
be a monster in the Champions League.
I cannot wait to see him in the Champions League. That's going to
Yeah.
be incredible. Gary says it's an option, by the way. Big up, Gary.
So
Appreciate you, man.
I think we've got both. We've got an obligation and an option. So we're one way or another. I think we'll end up buying him
Yeah, I
because
mean,
I think from what he's already done, he's worth the money.
and with his age, I can't imagine the fee would be too high.
Is it
So
20 mil?
that's fine. Yeah, that's in this
25.
economy. In this economy, Soren, 20 mil, do
It
it.
might be more. But I think I don't think it was a lot. Maybe somebody will have a look, but I don't think it was a massive fee.
I could stop being lazy. I'll look it up. Hold on one second. Matthew says Johnson will farm in the UEFA Champions League. What's that mean? I'm not sure I understand the slang. Is he going to do good or bad? Is farm a good thing or a bad thing?
Flexible option somebody's put. I don't know. Well, I think everybody told us last year when we was in the Europa League and we got told, oh, we've played, and this is from our own fans, we've played nobody decent. We won't play these sort of teams in the Champions League. Well, we've got two of the teams we played in Europa last year in our group in the Champions League.
I know. How funny was that? I think it was
Exactly.
what's his face? What's that journalist? Alistair Gold. Yeah, Alistair Gold put
Yeah.
a funny tweet out about that.
Yeah. And I think we'll do better than some people think we will. You know, we've already shown we can play the likes of Man City, PSG, and look, we got absolutely schooled at Bayern. I get that, but not everybody's as good as Bayern. And with Thomas Frank, once these players get a little bit of time under him and learn his systems and get some confidence, and the fact we've now got a front three of Simmons, Muani, and Kudos, my defence is, I would argue, as good as anybody's. Midfield, Papsar, Benton Kerr, and Paulinho on their days is as good a midfield three as anybody's got. I'm not saying it's better but it's as good as.
Throw Simmons in the mix too. I mean,
yeah, it's the future's good. And look, I don't know. I think Thomas Franks, as much as he hasn't managed in Europe really before, I think his system will suit playing Europe. And if you look at over the last few years when we've played Champions League, if you go back when we played Milan under Conte, we should have won that. And this
yeah,
squad is better
that's a
than
bad
that squad.
memory.
Yeah, I mean, you 1-0 down, so you bring a defender on.
Yeah,
Perfect.
what
But you name me all the teams in the Champions League that are head and shoulders above us. I mean, there's the obvious ones, but that's only a certain amount. So, if we get out the group stage and we make it to, say, the last 16, then that's not a bad run in the Champions League for me. But
right, and then you also have to think some of those teams that are just no arguments better than us will most likely play each other or very likely play each
exactly,
other,
yeah.
thus knocking one out. And then it's like, yeah, I mean, I'm with you,
I
man.
mean,
I
we
don't think
could.
it's as crazy to think that we might make it to the quarterfinals or,
No,
I mean,
I was going to say the exact same. And you look at it, if we went through the ones that are the big teams in the Champions League, you start naming teams like Barcelona. Well, Barcelona aren't the team they used to be anymore.
very
You
true.
start Real Madrid. I mean, Real Madrid are Real Madrid. Bayern Munich are Bayern Munich. But you go past them two, and we've already shown if we get, if things are right on the night, we can kind of almost match PSG. So what's to say if we get them again when they're not playing on the top? What's to say we get a Real Madrid that are not on form? What's to say we don't get a Bayern Munich that suddenly aren't on form? Same with any other team. We could play them and they're absolutely blasting it and we're not on form. So, we could go away to Bodo and get absolutely smashed. But this is the thing with Champions League that you don't know. We with the team we've got, if we've got a full squad when we come to play people like PSG, Frankfurt, who else have we got? Have we got Dortmund? I can't remember who we've got now. Is it Dortmund?
I thought it was Leverkusen. Bayer
Oh,
Leverkusen.
no, we haven't got Leverkusen, have we?
Shit, man. Now I look like
Yes,
an
I
idiot.
can't remember. Anyway, when we go away to these teams, what's to say that we can't win them?
So I'm pulling up our
Yeah,
Champions League draw real quick. So we've got Borussia Dortmund. You were right. So
Dortmund.
it's
Yeah, I thought it
Dortmund,
was Dortmund. Yeah,
PSG,
the other wall.
Villarreal, Eintracht Frankfurt. Wait, is
You
this
see, out
right?
of all them, the only one that to me is the hardest game is the PSG. Going away to PSG is the rest, you look at them and think, we have a very good chance of winning. I'm not saying we're going to win them all, but you look at them, Villarreal, a good team, Dortmund at home. Why shouldn't we win? Why shouldn't we win these games? Apart from the fact it's Tottenham.
Yeah, but you also can't forget, and I mean, I know you haven't, but one can't forget that we did win a trophy. This group has won a trophy. They've got that kind of off their backs now. That's kind of galvanized them, and I think shown them that they can accomplish things together. And so that belief, I think, will carry on into the season. I think we saw it in the match against PSG. Clearly, we didn't get that over the line, but
Yeah.
I'm excited. I think that we've got
Well,
good things coming.
yeah. I mean, you look at the two big players in the sense of what we've signed in Muani and Simmons. If they hit the ground running like we all want them to, or we all expect them to, then that front three, Simmons, Muani, and Kudos, is in that group of Champions League is a terrifying front three.
For sure, and
And
they've all got Champions League experience. I mean,
yeah, and the thing is, Colin, with that, people say, well, how will Moani cope in the Premiership? How will Simmons? Well, yeah, but they should cope in the Champions League then, shouldn't they?
exactly. Yeah, I'm with you, man. I'm with you. Jimmy
Mm.
Hotspur says he's out of here. He's gonna go play squash. Well, that's fun. I've never played squash before. Have a good one, Jimmy. Thanks for being here, buddy. See you on the next one.
Thank you, mate.
But yeah, no, Soren, you're 100% right, man. Look, it's an exciting season to be a Spurs fan. I think thanks Ange for getting us that trophy. I really do appreciate that from him. More than just the trophy itself. Like I said, I think it's just going to breed a winning mentality amongst these guys, and show them like Ange said that they can do things, that they can accomplish things together, and that's super valuable. I
Yeah.
The belief had never really been there because they hadn't really done it together, and so that alone I think is worth its weight in gold. I'm really excited to see.
But you look at that, Colin, I mean, and this is something that really rattles me. If you go back over the last 10, 15 years, whatever you want to, however far you want to, how many finals have we been in where we could have won silverware? It's not like we're not making finals. I think,
Yeah,
is it seven?
at least five. At least five I can think of. But
Yeah. So, there has been every single chance to be a successful team. The problem is when we've got to the stage and we had Harry Kane in the team, we
I
had
know, I
Sonny in the
know.
team,
Yeah,
but these big players that we talked about Lookman winning the Europa Cup. Well, why didn't Kane win it for us then? Well, there's those arguments that we've had a chance to have had silverware. We could have been a successful team. We haven't got over the line. We have now, and now is the time where we think, right, this season has got to be about making sure we're solid. We become a very hard team to beat. And if we are hard to beat, there is every chance of more silverware.
yep.
If,
And
if
and
we if
I
we
think
don't
that
concede, we've only got to score one.
very true. And like you said, defense is kind of our strongest attribute right now. And I think a lot of Spurs fans are sort of down on our squad compared to other teams just because of how we've underperformed in the past. But as long as we play to the level that we can play to, we were talking about it earlier. I think player for player, our squad is really strong. And I think that, we don't have some of the flashiest names, but I just don't think that our squad's much worse than a lot of really good teams in the league and across Europe. And so I'm excited to see what we can do, man. I'm really excited.
Well,
Um,
a lot of people have said the best signing this season has been Thomas Frank. Well,
Fair, yeah,
how many times have we said a good manager can lift an average team to greatness? Well, now's the time to see. If you look at if you take into sections what we've got one of the best front threes now on paper. Midfield, if you look at Papsar, Bentancur, and Paulinho, we've got an absolute solid middle three. If you go to the back, Romero, Van der Ven, whether you put Jed Spence in there or Udogi and then Porro on the other side, it's as good a back four on paper as what we could hope for. Then you go to the goalie. Vicario is a fantastic shot stopper, is a very good goalie, but he doesn't command his area well enough and he
true.
doesn't kick well enough. But as a goalie, he's not too bad. So if you take that as the first 11 of what we've got, we have an absolutely great first 11. The problem comes with the drop down to the bench. So that first 11, if they stayed fit and played most of the games this season, we'd be all right.
Yeah.
We'd do all right.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. We got Matthew in the chat asking if we think that Johnson should be sold after the season. I can see the argument. I mean, I can. I've just never. He's an enigma for me in that I've never seen a player that is just absolutely as anonymous as him, especially on the left. On the right, he was bad enough in that regard, where I thought that, he would just go missing largely for big periods of the match, but then he'd pop up with a goal like he does on the left. But on the left, he's even less involved in the build up and tracking back. So I mean, I could see the argument, but the boring answer is I will just defer to what Thomas Frank wants to do. If he's worth keeping around for, coming off, I think coming off the bench, he could be really useful. I just think that his skill set isn't best suited to starting and playing 90 minutes. Uh, but I'm interested to know what you got to say about that.
Well, my argument to that one would be, so if Brennan Johnson comes and scores 20 goals again this season,
Yeah.
and he's the highest goal scorer in the team again this season, and he is asked by his manager to score goals, then how do you sell him? And what's the? I mean, look, I was one of his biggest critics last year. I said going forward is great, and I did predict he would be the highest scorer last year. It is on camera on the with the Irish lads. Um, but what's to say he wasn't told not to get back and defend? What's to say he wasn't told to stick to the halfway line and just go forward and not run down to the back? I mean, I'm not saying this is what was said, but
Yeah,
what's to
there's no
say
way to
that the
know.
way
Yeah.
the way he played wasn't what he was told? Now, would I sell him? Yes, but only if we got a better replacement in, which I know we kind of have already, but I, it's another 20. I mean, it's another 20 goals when the rest of the team weren't really scoring. So I find it hard to say you've got to sell him if he actually produces again. If he does what Thomas Frank asks him, then we won't sell him. If he has a season where he purely plays as a winger and he is given the winger's role, which in theory is get down the byline and cross and score some goals, and he comes out and he scores 7, 8, 9 goals, and he only has 4 or 5 assists, then yeah, he's gone. He's got to. But if he scores 20 goals and has, I don't know, 10, 15 goal assists, then how do you get rid of him?
And I think also those numbers could be lower if he was playing as a substitute, and it would still warrant keeping him.
Hmm.
He doesn't need to get those high numbers for me if he does get kind of relegated to like a substitute appearances kind of player. And that's
Yeah.
fine too. You need that. And I think if we could upgrade on him, but then keep him as a super sub, or I think the term super sub is kind of stupid. But if you could sub him on late in the game, fresh legs, he could be really useful that way too. I mean, there's arguments for keeping him and for letting him go, but I think that as cover and as a bench option, he's pretty good. So
I mean, Gary comes up with a good one, and it's something that a few of us have said. I see him being a player that comes on as a sub and plays as a number 9 and gets in the box and is there for these tap-ins. And again, the perfect time is probably play him down the centre in one of these games like, say, Doncaster or the beginnings of the cup runs. Put him down as a number 9, put Tel on the left, put Odebear on the right, give Kudos and that a rest, and see how it goes. Because he is one of the most clinical finishers as a tapping person in our team. So I don't know. Maybe we're playing him in the wrong position. Maybe
that's
he would be better as a number 9, but is he ever going to get that chance? I don't know.
that's a fair assessment. I wonder in that team, in that hypothetical squad you were kind of putting together there, who would be playing the kind of, I guess, the Xavi Simmons of that team. You know what I mean? I wonder, like that team does seem like that it's got some promise, but you would need somebody. And again, I'm just kind of poking at things, but that team would, I think, need someone pulling the strings and delivering the creative passes to be able to kind of set those guys up to be able to score goals. But yeah,
Like you say, you put the Xavi Simmons in the 10.
yeah, that would, I think
But
that would work.
but then, I mean, there are a lot of options, and that's why I think when people look at this squad, I get why they do it. They're looking at it as what are we going to win right now? And this is the problem. It's as much as we all want to win right now, you also got to try and look at what might happen next season or the season after. I mean, somebody put I don't know if it was a poll or just a question, and obviously we'd got Simmons in, and does anybody see us kind of challenging towards the league within the next 5 years? And I think we could. I think in 3 years' time, if this squad is together, Thomas Frank's still the manager, we've added a couple more players to it, maybe more than a couple as two, but we've added some more players to it. These players all become of age. We could have an absolutely tremendous squad. And who knows what we could do? But we've got to get it right now.
Yeah, we're in an interesting spot because, like you said, the future does look good. I wouldn't really even put a cap on what they can do. I think that if these players all develop the way that we want them to, yeah, it's gonna be great. I don't know. I mean, what I think that we'll need a left-sided player in January, and I'm going to be interested to see if we're able to accomplish that. It being a World Cup year, I think it's kind of likely that we'll be able to tempt somebody into, kicking up enough of a stink at their current club that they might let him go, and maybe even Savinho. It's weird that City are usually so keen to let players go, but they wouldn't let us have Ake or Ake's still at City, right? Yeah. They
Yeah.
wouldn't let us have him or Savinho. That was strange. But maybe, if either of them put in an actual transfer request in January, maybe that could happen. Um,
I
yeah.
don't really see us. I mean, people are talking about having a lot of money to spend in January, and we're going to sign the targets that we didn't get this, in the summer. But I don't know. I unless we've got injuries, because obviously we're expecting Kulu back around then.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
True.
in theory, Solanke should be back. So we're almost at full strength. The only player that we're looking at who's out now and the team we've got being fit, there's only Madison that's not going to be back.
And you know what? I had
So
forgotten that Kulu primarily even it's been so long since I've seen him play, and I like him so
yeah,
much in the 10 that I kind of forgot that he primarily played
well,
on the wing.
exactly, yeah. I mean,
So
a lot of people screamed and shouted to say put Kugo in the 10. Well, maybe you could be looking at a front line of Simmons on the left, Kulo in the middle, Kudos on the right, Muani up front. You've got a lot of work rate, you've got a lot of talent, but then you drop in Papsar or Bentancur. Well, if Bentancur goes, it's answered your question. And look, I mean, don't get me wrong. If say Savinho comes in January, then perfect. But I don't know. I think where people think we're going to sign some big players in January, I don't see it. I unless the squad's decimated with injuries, or we're desperate, or somebody comes up just out of the blue. Fair enough, but I just don't see us going for these players in January. I really don't.
they will be extra expensive. I can see that, and
Yeah,
we've all seen it as much as it annoys some people. Daniel Levy does like a nice opportunistic signing. So if one does present itself, I could see it happening. But good points. Well,
yeah,
this has been an awesome conversation, and I hate to end it because I'm just having a lot of fun. But I've got to work in 20 minutes, so I got to
yeah,
start getting ready for that, unfortunately. And I'm sure you got to feed dogs and
yeah. Dogs
feed
are.
yourself.
Yeah,
But hey, Soren, I really really appreciate you coming and spending time with me
yeah,
today, man. It's been a blast. And everyone in the chat's been really, really cool today. So thank you guys. Lots of new faces in here. So really nice to see everybody. I'm glad to have you along for the ride. A big thanks to Peter Kagayas. this is probably the biggest super chat I've ever gotten on a show. So, Peter, I know you're not here anymore, but if you watch this back, big love, big thanks to you, buddy. Always appreciate having you around. And yeah, to everybody watching, if you don't mind, hit a like, subscribe to the channel if you want to, hit that notification bell, and every time I go live, you'll be notified because sometimes I don't know I'm going live until right before I do. So hit that bell and you will be notified. And Soren, yeah, you got any plans to be live on anybody's show soon?
No, I think I've got a quiet week. It's just every now and then, like yourself, there'll just be a message come up saying, "Are you free
Oh yeah,
tonight? Or are you free?" Generally, I'll be on with Dave, the Irish Hotspur, Dave and Jack.
good dudes, good dudes.
Yeah, sometimes if Sean puts a link out, I'll go on. But generally, yeah, it's just a last minute type thing, and then match previews. So obviously nothing this weekend. So
Man, I'm bored
um,
already waiting for the next match.
yeah, I hate international break. I think it's the most ridiculous thing in the world.
Our
I just
players always seem to get injured.
well, it's not just that, but it's yeah, is a team supposed to get any momentum when we've played 3 games and we're on a bloody international break already? To me, put the international games on at the very beginning of the season before we kick a ball,
That
and
makes too
then
much sense, though. They can't do that.
yeah, or have a break at Christmas or a week before Christmas, 2 weeks before Christmas, and let them have a couple of games. I just hate the fact of we saw it last year where all of a sudden we might have a little run of a game or two where we start to look good, and then all of a sudden you're on a break again,
And we always
and
seem to
then
lose before international breaks. We've got to sit on
yeah,
that negative feeling from the loss for 2 weeks. Um,
yeah,
so West Ham coming up. So Kudus gets to play against his old team. That'll be kind of cool.
yeah.
You got a prediction for that one before we jump off here?
It's a 5:30 kickoff, isn't it?
That I don't know. I'm
Yeah,
not sure.
I'm sure it's an evening kickoff on a Saturday.
So we'll be
I,
televised. That'll be cool.
yeah, yeah, it's on Sky. I predict 2-1 to Spurs. I think they will score. Um, but I think we'll have too much for them hopefully. So yeah, two
Will we
one.
see will we see Simmons and Kolo
Muani.
Muani?
I would expect so, unless they get injured, which could be quite an interesting game because if Simmons does play that number 10, he's kind of opposite Paqueta.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think he'll play left wing. And I think we could see the problem with West Ham is they're gonna target him, aren't they? They're gonna be dirty on him, which could be a good thing because we could then see how good he is. Um,
I like riding challenges and
yeah,
staying on
I
his
mean, a lot
feet
of
and
people said that Messi couldn't play in the Premiership, and then you watch
cold
him and
rainy night and Stoke and all those
yeah.
jokes. Yep.
But yeah, I think we'll see him, and I think it could be one of those where we put on an absolute masterclass with them up front. Kudos has got something to prove. So yeah, 2-1 is a bare minimum.
Yeah, I'm going to say 3-1 to Spurs. You're right. I do see them scoring. They're always up for it against us. Um, yeah, 3-1 to the good guys for me. I liked this comment exchange here real quick. Matthew said, "Where did the 70 million for Savinho gone?" Gary Becks comes in and says, 70 million still there. You don't go for a Big Mac and it's sold out, so you spend it on this cheeseburger. Good stuff. Good stuff. So yeah, 3-1 for me. Soren, I will see you soon, man. And thanks again. Thanks everybody again for watching. See you guys next time.
Yeah.
Bye.